I still remember the day Sarah walked back through our front door, suitcase wheels clattering against the wooden floor, her hair slightly windblown from the long drive. She looked radiant. Not the kind of radiant you see after a normal trip. This was different. Her eyes had that mischievous sparkle, her cheeks a flush I hadn't seen in months. She hugged me quickly, almost too quickly, and her smile lingered like she was holding on to some secret that made her feel powerful. She talked about her girls' weekend at the lake, laughing about inside jokes I wasn't part of, skipping details like she was intentionally leaving spaces blank. I didn't push. I've always believed in giving space, in trusting the person you marry. But trust is a funny thing. It doesn't shatter in one blow. It cracks quietly, almost politely, until the break is undeniable. 2 weeks later, I noticed her avoiding wine at dinner. Sarah loved her nightly glass, said it helped her unwind. When I asked, she shrugged and said she wasn't in the mood. By the third night, my curiosity turned to suspicion. I watched her in the kitchen, one hand resting protectively over her stomach without even realizing it. And then the thought hit me, hard, uninvited, and cruel. I told myself I was overthinking, that the timing of her trip and this sudden change was a coincidence. But coincidences don't explain the way she avoided intimacy, or how her phone suddenly had a password I didn't know. One night, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. My hands weren't shaking from guilt. They were shaking from knowing I was about to learn something I could never unlearn. The messages were there, clear as daylight. From Daniel. Daniel, the husband of her best friend Claire. The man I'd shared beers with in my own backyard, talking about football and life, trusting him like family. His words to her were vile in their intimacy. They talked about their night at the cabin, about how the risk made it more exciting. And then one line that made my blood run cold. "You think he'll notice when the baby has my eyes?" I closed the phone, placed it exactly where she left it, and walked outside into the night air. The crickets chirped like nothing had happened. The world spinning along while mine had just collapsed. I didn't confront her, not yet. Anger wasn't the weapon I needed. Patience was. Over the next few days, I watched her. Every laugh, every casual touch to her stomach, every moment she texted Daniel when she thought I wasn't looking. And I realized something. She wasn't just betraying me. She was basking in it. The glow I'd noticed when she first came home wasn't from the trip, it was from him. From them. I didn't sleep much that week. Instead, I started making quiet calls, gathering the kind of proof no one could deny. Screenshots, phone records, and, most importantly, a visit to a clinic. My friend Mark worked there, and I needed one thing: certainty. The results would come later, but in my gut, I already knew. Sarah had no idea that while she was planning a new life, I was planning her reckoning. I sat there in silence, watching her chew on the corner of her lip, a nervous habit she hadn't shown in years. She avoided my eyes, pretending to be fascinated by the creases in the sofa cushion. I'd imagined so many ways she might come clean, but this felt like a slow-motion confession. "You're quiet," she murmured finally, her voice shaky. "Are you angry?" I almost laughed. Angry? That word didn't even scratch the surface. There was a storm behind my ribs, but it wasn't just rage. It was disbelief, disgust, and the hollow ache of someone who'd been played for a fool. "Why don't you tell me whose child you're carrying?" I asked, my tone even but sharp enough to slice the air. Her shoulders stiffened. She inhaled slowly, as though she could somehow breathe courage into her lungs. "It's not what you think." I cut her off. "No." "Then explain it to me. Because from where I'm sitting, you went away for 4 days, and now you're back pregnant. That's a puzzle even a child could solve." Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't move me the way they used to. I'd spent years comforting those tears, believing they were born of innocence. Now they looked like a desperate mask. "It happened once," she whispered. I was drunk and I pushed. "And it just happened to be your best friend's husband?" She winced like I'd slapped her. "I didn't plan it," she said. "We were talking and, I don't know, things got out of control." My hands curled into fists on my knees. I pictured Thomas, tall, charming, the kind of man who could make a room gravitate toward him without trying. I'd always found him too smooth, too casual with his compliments toward my wife. And now I understood why. What about her? I asked. What about Emily? Her head dropped. She doesn't know. That hit harder than I expected. Not only had she betrayed me, but she'd driven a dagger into the back of the one woman who'd trusted her most. It wasn't just my marriage she'd poisoned, it was their friendship too. I stood up, the air in the room suddenly feeling too heavy to breathe. Do you have any idea what you've done? This isn't just some drunken mistake you can sweep under the rug. You've destroyed everything. She finally looked up at me then, eyes wide, as though she'd just realized the full weight of her actions. I can fix it, she said. We can get past this. Her words made me feel physically sick. The arrogance of it. To think that betrayal could be fixed, with the same ease as a broken vase. I'm not your repair project, I said, my voice colder than I thought possible. And this isn't a marriage anymore. It's a crime scene. She flinched, and for the first time since she'd walked through that door, the false calm drained from her face. Her smile, the one she'd worn when she first stepped inside, had completely vanished, replaced by the pale, hollow look of someone who realizes they've just lost everything. You're leaving? She asked, her voice trembling. No, I replied. You are. The suitcase she dragged in earlier still sat by the door untouched. I pointed at it. Take it. Go somewhere, anywhere, and don't come back until you've figured out how to tell Emily the truth. Because I will. And when I do, you won't have anyone left to hide behind. She stared at me, her lips trembling like she wanted to protest, but the words never came. For once, she was speechless. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for the last few days. Her smile faltered the moment she saw the papers inside. Divorce, I said plainly, placing them on the table between us. You can sign them now, or I can have my lawyer serve you at your office. Your choice. Her hand trembled as she picked up the first page, her eyes scanning the lines. You're serious? She stammered, looking up at me as if I'd lost my mind. I was serious about us. About our vows. About building a life together. I said, my tone measured but icy. But you threw it away the moment you decided to come back here pregnant with another man's child, and expected me to pretend nothing happened. Tears started rolling down her cheeks, and for a moment, I could almost see the woman I'd once loved, vulnerable, human. But the memory of her lies, her betrayal, her arrogance burned away any softness I might have felt. Please, we can fix this. I can explain, she pleaded, reaching across the table. I pushed her hand away. Explain? What is there to explain? You betrayed me with someone I considered a friend. Worse, you came back expecting me to raise his child. That's not love, Emily. That's cruelty. She went quiet, her head dropping. I could see her calculating, realizing that the control she once had over me was slipping. What will people say? She whispered, as if that was the real tragedy here. Let them talk, I said. I'd rather be seen as a man who walked away from a liar than one who stayed and lived a lie. I stood, pulling out my phone. You have until the end of the week to move your things out. After that, my lawyer will handle everything. Don't contact me unless it's through him. Her lips quivered. And what about us? There is no us, I said firmly. There's just you, your choices, and the consequences. I walked out without looking back. For the first time in months, the air felt lighter, as though I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't realized until I finally set it down. In the weeks that followed, the gossip spread like wildfire. Mutual friends tried to reach out, some wanting details, others offering support. I ignored most of them. My focus was on rebuilding myself, not explaining my pain to an audience that had no right to it. As for Emily, I heard she moved in with Michael. But the fairy tale ending she might have imagined didn't last long. His wife took him to court for everything he was worth. And the stress of it all seemed to erode whatever fantasy they had built together. One evening months later, I ran into her at a grocery store. She looked smaller somehow. The sparkle in her eyes was gone, replaced by something hollow. She gave me a weak smile, but I simply nodded and kept walking. It wasn't anger that drove me past her without another word. It was clarity. I finally understood that some chapters don't deserve revisiting, no matter how much history they hold. Betrayal doesn't just end a relationship, it rewrites you. And though the process of healing is messy, it's also liberating. I may have lost a wife, but I gained something far more valuable: the unshakable knowledge of my worth. And that is something she can never take away.